Hi Krishna, nice to see everybody. Sorry for being a little late again. Let me go ahead and start. Golagraganya gana go chugaloduhadam Goranga gudatama gopyada kolpa briksham Gopala gada ratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshi kavaram satatam namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachira Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Hemona Gauranga Hridaya Dadiya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hayamara Pranare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bidana Parama Pamata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavir Api Gopala Sri Kriyat Kripaya Jari Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Vishayusta Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatapta Brajabala Bapahimam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we want to continue our discussion about Mahaprabhu's bhajan and the Gambhira. Nice to see everybody here. Everybody's just jumped in the last moment. Krishna couldn't just sing on? Yeah. Okay. So I want to just look back a little bit what we spoke before. The Gambhira has a very strong relevance in our personal bhajan. Let me just share with you a verse from the Brahma-vivarta Purana, which I like very much, very beautiful verse. This is from the first canto, chapter 1 of Brahma-vivarta Purana. Nirjane tirtha samparke nisanga ye mudan vitaha jayante charanam bhojam shri hares te chavaishnavaha. Those persons who are living alone in a holy place, meditating on the Lord's lotus feet, those personalities, they're called Vaishnavas. They're called great devotees. So this, as we mentioned, I think in our last session, it's a little hard for me to look back. Hare Krishna. Nice to see everybody. Doesn't mean that devotees are against associating with other persons, but devotees are interested in cultivating inwardness. That inwardness, the inner communion, is not the same as isolation. And there's many sadhus in India today who prefer isolation. Sometimes even devotees do that. Srila Prabhupada wasn't favorable to that, neither was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. They wanted to see centers in big cities and busy parts of the town. But at the same time, we live alone. And as we mentioned in the last session, speaking from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says 4 times in the Bhagavad Gita, he speaks about the importance of living alone and how that's one of the symptoms of knowledge. So that's the Gambhira. And as we spoke in our last session, this has an important relevance for all of us. We have to learn from gaura-lila how to be inward and at the same time also support organized religion, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, Lochandas Thakur, and Chaitanya Mangal. He says that Mahaprabhu was going 4 times a day to have darshan of Lord Jagannath. But he was supporting organized religion in the form of the Jagannath Mandir. But at the same time, his life was an inward life. He was teaching us. And when he was staying in the Gambhira, he was there with just a very few devotees, his servant Govinda, Roy Ramananda, Subdhamana Goswami, sometimes Raghunath Das Goswami, or a few other very intimate devotees. So in our last session, we spoke something about how Mahaprabhu came to the Gambhira and how that was given on the recommendation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, that place to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in this session, we'd like to speak about something I like very much. For those of you who've been following our talks, we titled Meeting in Kurukshetra, we gave several sessions about Kashi Mishra. And I want to speak again about Kashi Mishra, but since we last spoke about him, I found a whole lot more things. And it's a very interesting subject to me, partly because I feel very satisfied, because if you look in the Gaudiya Vaishnavabhidhan, there's practically nothing about Kashi Mishra's life. It's just mentioned briefly. If you look in the Gaura Parshada Supriya Parshada, the Associates of Mahaprabhu, one famous Bengali book written by one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, there's no mention of Kashi Mishra, little mention here and there, but there's no section about his life. So Kashi Mishra Bhavan is a place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying. And we mentioned something about the deities there, Sri Sri Radhakant, and I can show you again a beautiful picture of them, and how some people say that these deities were acquired by Maharaj Prataparudra. Others say, according to tradition in Puri, they were acquired by Maharaj Purushottam Jana, the son of Maharaj Kapilendra and the father of Maharaj Prataparudra. According to the local tradition, when whoever it was, either he or Maharaj Prataparudra, went to South India to fight with the king of Kashi, they had a dream, and Krishna came to him and told him, I'm buried in the ground, and you dig me up. And this is how Radhakant were found. And then he brought them back, and according to the local tradition, they were given to Kashi Mishra, who apparently was the Rajguru, or the guru for Maharaj Prataparudra, but also likely the guru for Maharaj Purushottam Jana. Maharaj Purushottam Dev. It's a little confusing. If you look in the line of kings in Puri, there's Maharaj Kapilendra, who we wrote about in our last Bindu magazine. He established a famous deity of Rendra Nrsimha, not too far from Jagannath Puri, between Puri and Amarnath. And his son was Maharaj Purushottam Dev. Maharaj Purushottam Dev, his son, was Maharaj Prataparudra, the great devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his son was Maharaj Purushottam Jana. And there's wonderful stories about each of these very saintly kings. So Kashi Mishra was a great devotee of the Lord. It will help us to understand something about the bhajan of Mahaprabhu and the Gambhira if we understand something more about Kashi Mishra. So I want to look in a number of different books. Mostly today we're going to be doing a lot of reading. And I'll show you as we're going along in my file. And we're just going to kind of paraphrase a lot of it because I really don't like just standard reading. But let's find out something about Kashi Mishra, very interesting. So first of all, we want to turn to Chaitanya Treat Mahakavya, which is by Kavi Karnapur. In chapter 13, he says, Samagatam tam parikarnyakashi mishram chataga patalita mishraha vilokyanatva mumude prakamam abipsitam bahu chatushtayadhyam. That when he heard that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had arrived and come to his home, Kashi Mishra had darshan of him, and Mahaprabhu manifested his forearm form before Kashi Mishra. Kashi Mishra really, really appreciated that very much. So again, in the Chaitanya Chait Mahakavya, Kavi Kanipur says, Chakipa bir abi chimbita esha shimadan vikamalasya rajobihi ranjita pulaka kantaka tangaha sandra sokya vivasa sa rarada. That Kashi Mishra got the special mercy from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu put his feet on his head. He gave the dust from his feet on Kashi Mishra's head. And Kashi Mishra's hair started standing on end, and he became very, very ecstatic. So Kashi Mishra then, he brought that Griha Lakshmi of Jagannath under his control. Griha Lakshmi means Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Kashi Mishra was carrying out all the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he says that who can understand Kashi Mishra, who understood the mind of the Lord. And it was Kashi Mishra, Nirmitani Vidada Prabhu Chittam Prakalaya Kim Ayam Jana Vedyaha, who was giving different orders for different mahotsavas, different festivals. Yo Mahotsava Vido, the vidi, or the rules and regulations for different festivals, was recommended by him to Maharaj Prataparudra. Maharaj Prataparudra was coming to see him every day. Such a great personality was him. Kashi Mishra is described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Kashi Mishra Parama Vivala Krishna Rase Apane Rahila Prabhu Yanhara Avase. That he's always overwhelmed with Krishna Prem. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying in his house. He was the right hand of Maharaj Prataparudra. So he had the post of directing what went on for Lord Jagannath. We could say, as I noted here, he's like a manager of the present time. In the Chaitanya Chandradoya Matakam, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya introduces Kashi Mishra to Mahaprabhu by saying, Bhagavan iti bhagavataha pashupalaha. Esha Kashi Mishra nam. Said, my dear Lord, this Bhagavan iti bhagavata pashupalaha, this is a servant of Lord Jagannath, the servant of the Lord. His name is Kashi Mishra. Esha Sarvadikari Pratvivaka Bhagavataha. His name is Kashi Mishra, and he's a Pradviveka. Pravivaka means the superintendent of the temple. That was a position that Kashi Mishra had. And the king, Maharaj Prataparudra, used to consult with him for every service about Lord Jagannath. So the house of Kashi Mishra was decided to be Mahaprabhu's residence. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya personally took him to the house of Kashi Mishra. And when he arrived there, Chaitanya Charitamrita says that Kashi Mishra asi padila prabhuda charane griha sahita atmatana kaila nivedan. The Kashi Mishra surrendered everything to him and all of his possessions. Now, I'd like to speak something in the session today about the previous verse of Kashi Mishra. And for those of you who attended with us some of our discussions about meeting Kurukshetra, you'll know that Kashi Mishra was Kubja. And according to the 48th chapter of the 10th canto, after Uddhava returned to Mathura with a message from the gopis of Braj, the first thing that Krishna did is described in the first or second verse of the 48th chapter. Krishna went to see Kubja. And Srila Jiva Goswami says, well, that's not very nice. Because our acharyas describe Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur and others, that when Krishna heard the situation, the condition of Srimati Radharani and the gopis of Braj, Krishna started crying. And he went to a private place with Uddhava to hear more about them. After crying and hearing about the situation of Radharani, the first thing that Krishna does is to go to visit Kubja. Why is that? And Uddhava comes along with him. And I think it's Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur who explains that Krishna did that to give a message to the gopis, because Krishna's very much aware that whatever he's doing in Mathura and later in Dwarka is being watched and heard all about by the gopis of Braj. So he was giving an indirect message to the gopis. And what was that message? That just as I promised this lady, this ugly hunchback lady who's become beautiful, that I would go to her home. Now this lady has practically no bhakti in comparison to the gopis of Braj. But still this lady, because I promised her, I'm fulfilling that promise. So you should have no doubt that my promise to you, I said, Ayasya, I'm going to return. I'll definitely keep my promise to you. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes the same thing that the Chaitanya Charit Mahakavya says. I'll go ahead and read a little bit from it. That when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he arrived in the Gambhira in Kashi Mishra's home, Prabhu Chaturbuja Murti Tanda Dekailas Atmasat Koritare Alingana Koila, that Mahaprabhu showed Kashi Mishra's forearm form. And then he accepted his service, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Alingana Kaila, he embraced him very, very intimately. And then Mahaprabhu sat down, the place that Kashi Mishra prepared for him, and all the devotees who were there, headed by Lord Nityananda Prabhu, surrounded him. So this is important. The Gambhira is a place of many things. It's a place where Mahaprabhu has some solitary bhajan. As we mentioned in our first session, Mahaprabhu's life has been divided into different categories, different sections by our acharyas. It's 24-6-6-12. 24 years he spent as a householder in Navadvip, and 6 years he spent traveling in South India, and then 6 years he spent in the Gambhira, showering mercy on what we would call his lieutenants, or his primary associates, like Nityananda Prabhu, Haridas Thakur, Advaita Acharya, and others, giving them instructions how to spread the Sankirtan movement. And those meetings were very, very private and very intimate meetings. And in the last 12 years, Mahaprabhu locked himself up and was alone, with the exception of a very few devotees, as we mentioned, Sri Damodar Roy Ramananda, sometimes Raghunath Das Goswami. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like a good organizer, he taught us that this is the ideal life. You do what's natural. Take care of your mother, take care of your family, take care of your children, be a householder. But then at a certain point, you should give that up and you should preach. And Mahaprabhu spent 6 years preaching. And then when he had some followers, then he trained them in a more intimate way. Gambhira, showing us also an ideal life that you travel, you preach, and at a certain point when you have some followers, then you don't do so much platform preaching, but you do something more intimate. And then the last 12 years of his life, he just locked himself up in the Gambhira, and he cried for himself. Krishna, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, crying for himself. So it says, Sukhi Hailadeki, Mahaprabhu was very happy seeing that place because all of his necessities were taken care of there. And we learned from this also that this Kashi Mishra, who was Kubja, who invited Krishna to come to her home, and she provided such a nice facility for him. She worshipped him so nicely. That same mood we see in the Gambhira with Kashi Mishra. And I would like to suggest to you that the purpose, why is it that we say that Kashi Mishra is Kubja? What is so significant about that? The significance that I see in this pastime of Kubja, Kubja's significance is that she plays a role to give a message to the gopis. She invites Krishna to her home. And Krishna comes there, and by coming to see her, who's second class or maybe 10th class at best, in comparison to the Braj gopis, Krishna's giving a message by visiting Kubja that I'm remembering you, and I'm going to return to you. So that same message is given in Jagannath Puri. The same Kubja has come, as Kashi Mishra, and the same message is being given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Krishna to the gopis. Now he's going to Kashi Mishra's house, who is Kubja, and he's doing the bhajan of the gopis in the mood of Radharani. He's remembering them. That place is the perfect place to show the gopis that I'm remembering you and I'm not forgetting my promise. So Mahaprabhu was very happy that Kashi Mishra had taken care of him in such a nice way. And we learn from this also that this is the mood that we want to take care of Sri Gurudev and the Vaishnavas. We want to give them nice facility, especially to take care of their bhajan and take care of their service. And this is the purpose of Kashi Mishra. He's giving all facility to Mahaprabhu to be able to taste Radha Bhav. That's the highest, that's the best service. In his Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about Atiti Seva, or service to the Vaishnavas, and how important that is for a Grihastha. And we know the Grihasthas, they like to serve the Vaishnavas. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that in this sense, the Grihastha ashram is superior to the sannyasa ashram, because the sannyasi is not able to do Vaishnav Seva. But because the Grihastha has a home, has some facility, they can render some service. But Bhaktivinoda, in one place, he says that the Grihastha should be careful. He should have programs in his home, but it's not that, he suggests that the Grihastha should not over-endeavor in those programs. I really like that comment from him. He said that they should serve simple food. Many times we go to the homes of devotees and they make very opulent feasts, which is nice. It's a sign of their love for the devotees. The devotees very much appreciate it. I think that's a wonderful thing. However, if in order to do that, those devotees are not able to hear the Hari Katha, or they're not able to come to the kirtan and the program in their home, then what's the value of it? Rather, it just becomes a source of pride. We're just trying to feed everybody in an opulent way, but we're not really coming together and doing kirtan. So the kirtan and the Hari Katha are everything. And when we hear that that in this place Mahaprabhu was so happy because because Kashi Mishra had given him all facility, this is the particular mood. Where in Jaiva Dharma, you're asking, Lila Purushottam Prabhu? I'd have to look that up. If you remind me later, I can look things up, but I just got to be reminded about it. It's a nice point. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then, he's also wanting to serve the Lord. And our acharyas have described that when the Lord comes, his eternal associates come in different forms, and they're always coming to help to facilitate the particular mission of the Lord in that incarnation. So Kashi and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he says that Prabhu Yogya Tomarbas, this is Yogya Tomarbas, this is a very Yogya, very befitting place for you. So you please accept it. And Kashi Mishra, Prabhu, this is his Kashi Mishra Asha. This is Kashi Mishra's hope, his Asha, his desire that you accept this. And Mahaprabhu taught us, he said that E Deha Toma Sabakar. He said, I have no choice in accepting this because I belong to all of you. So we see this in the lives of devotees when they speak Hari Katha, when they take on the position of helping other devotees, and those devotees render service to them, then they feel like they're controlled. They're owned by those devotees. And we see that in the case of Srila Prabhupada, that many times the devotees would tell him to certain things, Prabhupada, you have to finish now. And Prabhupada would very often, very humbly accept that. Or they would tell him, Srila Prabhupada, this is not good for your health. They wouldn't, you're not supposed to take this kind of prasadam. And sometimes, not always. Srila Prabhupada was also independent. But oftentimes Srila Prabhupada would accept that. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says here, E deha toma sabakar. I remember once I went to my Guru Maharaj, and this is a little private, personal thing, but it's not such a big deal. I went to him a little before he went to Mayapur, just before he left this world, and I had a very difficult request. I didn't know how to put it. So I said something like this. I said, Guru Maharaj, we have faith that you're surrendered to Krishna. We have faith that Krishna will protect you, but still, we can't tolerate to see you in some dangerous situation as your disciples. And we've heard there was some rumor, which turned out to just be that. There was some rumor that someone wanted to hurt him in Mayapur. And so I requested, I said, so Guru Maharaj, we know you're fully dependent on Krishna, and Krishna will take care of you, but we can't, as disciples, we can't tolerate that. So please, you accept one of your disciples to go with you, or a few, as bodyguards. And Guru Maharaj accepted in that way. Not, I don't think, because he felt that it was needed for him, but it was necessary because he had to please his disciples. So Mahaprabhu says, Deha, this body, Toma Sabakar, belongs to all of you. Jaitumi Kaha Se Samata Amar. Therefore, I have to agree with whatever you say. So this is Kashi Mishra. Kashi Mishra has so much love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he's offered so much wonderful service for Mahaprabhu. And again, in the Chaitanya Charit Mahakavya, Kavi Karnapur says, Sri Kashi Nyat Asya Vihestito Hari Sri Sarva Bhomari Anvita Swayam. That Mahaprabhu is staying there in the house of Kashinath. He calls him Kashinath Asya, Kashi Mishra. He was staying there in the house of Kashi Mishra, and it was there that he was meeting with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and the other devotees. So this is the Gambhira. This is the significance of the Gambhira. It's a place of solitude, but it's not a place of loneliness. It's not a place of isolation. It's a place of inwardness, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu associated with inward devotees, or what Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls antarmukh sishyas, devotees who are internal. And so the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes there were hundreds of devotees regularly coming to Kashi Mishra Bhavan. And there are so many of them who are coming to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house, and therefore in Chaitanya Chandrodaya Natakam, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he speaks this verse. I'm going to show you a very nice verse. We did a lot of research about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya for this. Yugante nata kuksha iva parisari palavalagor ami sarve brahmandaka samudayat eva bapushaha yatastanam labdavasaram ihamanti sma sattasaha sahasram lokanam bhatalaguni misrashram pade. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, this is Ascharya. This is a really astonishing thing. And he speaks a story from the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, which is also found in Skanda Purana, and how the Lord, at the end of a yuga, he assumes a small child resting on a banyan leaf, and all the universes enter into his small stomach. And he says, Yatastanam, in the same way, that stomach, Yatastanam, labdavasanam ihamantisma satasa. Now there's thousands and thousands of these planets, sahasram lokanam, thousands of planets, bhatta laguni, mishashrama pade, entering into Kashi Mishra's ashram. This has become such a very, very important place. So this Gambhira, bhajan pranali of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is really the essence of our sampradaya. It's not something we speak about with everyone, because not everyone is ready to understand that. But it has both an introductory meaning and a much deeper meaning. And we'll be examining both as kind of an introductory meaning. In a general way, it indicates to us that we should be inward in our dealings. We should be cultivating inwardness, not isolation, but we should be cultivating communion with the Lord of inwardness, or the inner Lord. We should be introspective, and we should be associating with devotees who are introspective if we want to understand the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So now let's turn a little bit to the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Where Vrindavan Das Thakur says, Hena mate Shigora Sundar Nila Chali Rahilena Kashi Mishra Grihe Kutuhale. He uses the word Kutuhale. That with great ecstasy, great happiness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying in Jagannath Puri in the house of Kashi Mishra. It was just the perfect place. Nirantara always was going on. The Nirantara Nitya Gita Ananda Avesh. There was ecstatic kirtans going on all the time. And everyone was coming, Prakashena Gora Chanda Deki Sarvadesh. Everybody was seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing and singing everywhere. Kakano Nachena Jagannatera Shamuke Chiladeko Bhaya Nahi Premananda Suke. And sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would start dancing in front of Jagannath in such a way that Bhaya Nahi, he had no external consciousness. He was just completely absorbed. So the Gambhira is a place that helps Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, helps Krishna to understand the mood of Srimati Radharani. It's a place where he's teaching us that we need to have a private place, an intimate place with intimate devotees where we can cultivate inwardness. And that inwardness, we learned from this verse in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it was also affecting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's relationship with Lord Jagannath. He became so absorbed in the mood of Srimati Radharani that he would come out to go to the organized religion, which everybody thinks is a big pain. From the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when they wouldn't allow Haridas Thakur and Rupa and Sanatana Goswami inside the temple, and there were big politics going on, and the kings are being killed, and this thing and that thing. Gopinath Pattanayaka was going to be killed because of some politics with the son of the king. So many things are happening there. This is a problem with organized religion. It's not just a new thing today. It's been going on for a long, long time. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was unaffected by that because he was staying in the Gambhira. And there in the Gambhira, he was constantly dancing. Nirantara Nritya Gita Ananda Vesh. Constantly dancing and chanting with the devotees. And then when he came to the organized religion, he was also in complete ecstasy, and he didn't see all the problems. He was just seeing the internal things. And Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, goes on to explain. Let's see, put this in the board also. Kakana nachena Kashi Mishra Mandire, Kakana nachena Mahaprabhu Sindhu Tire. That sometimes Mahaprabhu was dancing, Kakana, nachena, dancing, Kashi Mishra Mandire, in the house of Kashi Mishra, in the temple of Kashi Mishra. Kakana nachena Mahaprabhu Sindhu Tire. Sometimes he was dancing on the shore of the ocean. By that, from this we understand that because of the mood in the Gambhira, which Kubja, Kashi Mishra, facilitated, that mood enabled Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to fulfill his three desires, to taste Radha Bhav, and to fully understand, fully appreciate Lord Jagannath and the position of Jagannath Puri Dham. So Chaitanya Bhagavat goes on to say, E mata nirantara premira vilas. So he's constantly nirantara premira vilas, having these pastimes of ecstatic ecstasy, tasting the mood of Srimati Radharani. Tila deko anya karma nahika prakash. He didn't manifest nahika prakash even for a moment any other pastimes there. The Gambhira is such a very, very, very important place, such a very, very important pastime. If we don't understand the Gambhira, how can we get the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu completely? So The Chaitanya Chandradwaya Natakam of Kavi Karnapur describes a conversation where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he tells Gopinath Acharya, Gopinath Acharya was his cousin, he told him that we've gotten a place for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's going to stay in the house of Kashi Mishra. And what was the response of Gopinath Acharya from that? And from his response, we can understand something also about the importance of Kashi Mishra's bhavan, the Gambhira. He said, sadhu, sadhu, this is very, very good. Why is it very good? There's a little hint here. Singadwara nikate varti bhavati, because this place is very close to the Singadwara, to the Lion Gate of the Jagannath Temple. Mm-hmm. So because it's close, it'll fulfill the purposes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Parityanaya sadhunam vinashaya tuduskritam dharma samstapanartaya, the same purposes that Krishna expresses in the Bhagavad Gita, dharma samstarpana, to establish religion, to kill the demoniac mentality, to save the devotees. Those are businesses of organized religion. So he says, sadhu, sadhu. He says, stay there because the Singadwara Nikate, it's very close to the Singadwara. And he says, Jata Sakasat Sukhanaiva Jagannath Darshanam Bhavishyati. There, it's very good because he'll be able to very easily go and have darshan of Lord Jagannath. Very, very important. So Gopinath Acharya, by speaking like this and by giving us this verse, Kavi Karnapur, he's indicating that the devotees, because it's the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who understand Mahaprabhu, and this is their appreciation of the Gambhira and the situation of the Gambhira. It's close to the Singadwara gate, so he can do these things. So there, in that Gambhira, we find the torn kanta, or the cloth, of that former resident of Nadia, of Navadvip Dham, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his karanga of Radhakund that was made by Jagadananda Pandit, and the shoes that were made by Mahaprabhu's former wife, Vishnu Priya. And I'll show you a very wonderful picture. I think I've shared this before. I just like this picture so much. It really does something for me. This is from a book that was published in the 1920s, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that I found in an old bookstore in Kolkata. And it had this photograph. And I said, oh my God, you don't know how special this photo is. This is the shoes on the left of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the middle is the water pot of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the karanga, which is made from Radhakund mud, they say, by the hand of Jagadananda Pandit. And then there's a little box in. Inside that little box is some of the cloth, the kanta cloth that was made by Sachi Mata for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu before he left home. So this is an important picture. Let me show you why it's significant. Because you can't see like that these days. Rather, this is the normal thing that you can see. This is a little bit of an old picture. Now there's this painting of Mahaprabhu's picture you see in the background is gone, and there's a deity there now. It's very difficult to get photos there. They don't allow photographs, but we have some mafia friends. Anyway, you see on the left is a cage. Looks like a bird cage or something. Inside that cage, you can see the water pot of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the shoes and the other box. That's about as close as you can see. But in this picture, I was so excited. It looks like this was taken on the roof. That's my theory. It looks like it was taken on the roof of the Gambhira, that one day they brought these things out for a very special photograph. Very, very special items. So this is a Gambhira. These things are still present there today. And the Gambhira is so very, very important for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita at length. Most of the Ancha-lila speaks about Mahaprabhu's bhajan in the Gambhira. And I'd like to share with you a few verses that my Guru Maharaj would often recite in this regard. This is from Madhya-lila chapter 2. In this Madhya-lila chapter 2, Kaviraj Goswami is speaking about the Ancha-lila. Kahan mora prananata murali vadana Kahan karon kahapan Brajendra Nandana. Mahaprabhu is in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Kahan mora prananata, where's the Lord of my life? Kahan murali vadan, where's that player of the flute? Kahan karon kahan pan Brajendra Nandan. What should I do now? Where should I go? Where can I find Brajendra Nandan, the son of Nanda Maharaj? Kahare kahiba keba jani mora duka Brajendra Nandana binu fate mora buka. Kahare kahiba, who can I talk to? Keba jani mora duk. Who can understand the pain of my heart? This is what's going on in the Gambhira. Who can he speak to? Who can he speak to? The only persons that Radharani can speak to, this is the mood of Radha, are Lalita and Vishaka. So there in the Gambhira, we have Shrup Damodar and Roy Ramananda, who are Lalita and Vishaka. Kahare kahiba keba jani moraduk. Who can I speak to? Who can understand my unhappiness, the pain in my heart, my duk, my disappointment? Brajendra Nandana binu fate morabuk. Without the son of Nanda Maharaj, he says, my heart is broken. So this is Mahaprabhu's pastimes in the Gambhira. And in Jagannath Puri, for those Rasik Vaishnavas, they say, if anybody, they go to the Gambhira, that sound is all they can hear. And they go early in the morning from the Gambhira to the ocean, before the cars start and the radios and all the noise and things, you can hear the sound of the ocean. And you just hear that sound. Kahan mora prananata, kahun karon, kahun. What should I do? What should I do? And that they say you can still hear that sound of Mahaprabhu's bhajan today. And for those devotees whose hearts that sound enters into, they also become very impatient. They also become mad. And they become inward. They become detached from this material world. This is the glory of the Gambhira. This is a place for Kashi Mishra, who was completely absorbed in ecstatic prema, where he was staying. So that Kashi Mishra was previously Kubja. In the Antya-lila chapter 9, there's an interesting discussion given where we find, and this is chapter 9 is a pastime. I was just reading this chapter recently. It's a pastime of Gopinath Patanayaka. Very interesting pastime because I find it very fascinating because it seems like kind of like a mundane story. Here's this Gopinath Patanayaka. He's one of the one of the sons of Bhavananda Roy. He's a great devotee. But he committed some offense to the king. It's a long story. He's a tax collector, Gopinath Patanayak. And he was collecting money, but he put some of it in his pocket. And so when Maharaj Prataparudra's son found out about that, he said, hey, what's going on? And Gopinath Patanayak said, no problem, no problem. I don't have the money right now, but let me give you these valuable horses, and I'll also give you some money. And then the Maharaj Prataparudra's son looked at the horses, and he decided to try to cheat him. And he said, oh, these horses are not worth so much, only worth X amount. And he gave a grossly reduced fee amount. And at that time, Gopinath Patanayak became a little annoyed. Now, the son of Maharaj Prataparudra had kind of a funny twitch in his neck. And he was always, if you see my head moving like this, his head was always moving something like that. And so when that prince told Gopinath Patanayak, he gave him a reduced fee rate for the horses, which was cheating him. Gopinath Patanayak replied that, well, at least my horses don't have this funny thing with their neck. And it wasn't a very cool thing to say to Maharaj Prataparudra's son. He immediately ordered him to be killed. And then the word came to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu was very unhappy about it. And we hear in Antya-lila chapter 9 that Mahaprabhu was taking advice from Kashi Mishra in this regard. And here's what Kashi Mishra was telling him. Kashi Mishra kahe Prabhu Dhariya charane tumi kene e bhate shobha koromane. Kashi Mishra, he grabbed a hold of Mahaprabhu's feet. The same Kashi Mishra who's Kubja, who invited Krishna to come to her home and wash the feet of Krishna. The same Kubja now is catching hold of the same lotus feet of Krishna, is now in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and telling him, Tumi kene e bhatik shobha korimane. Why should you be agitated by all these affairs? Sanyasi virakta tomar kasane sambandha vyavahara lagitoma bhajise jnana anda. He said, you're a sannyasi. You're a virakta. You have no connections with anything else. You've given up all your connections with everyone. Tomara kasani sambandha. So what relationships do you have? Vyavahara lagi toma bhajise jnana anda. Someone who's approaching you and asking you for some help with some kind of politics or some material situation, they're jnana anda. They're blind to knowledge. They don't understand. Srila Prabhupada, in the beginning, he made sannyas in our society very interesting, like a managerial position. But later, Srila Prabhupada said it's actually better that the GBC members and the temple presidents are grihastas. Because the sannyasis are virakta. They don't have any attachment. They're not meant to be dealing with politics and doing all these different problems and things which happen in the society. They can simply go and preach Krishna consciousness, which is the ultimate solution for everything. But if we get them all caught up in hearing about this problem and that problem, then they can't do what they're supposed to do. So it's very interesting to me that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami presents this discussion between Kubja Kashi Mishra and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where now Kubja Kashi Mishra has become so intimate that Kubja Kashi Mishra is giving advice to the Lord. You don't want to get involved in all these material affairs and all this politics and GBC things and ISKCON. You don't want to deal with that. You want to just speak Krishna Katha. You're a renounced sannyasi. You're not supposed to be doing this. So it's fascinating to me, the same Kubja Kashi Mishra has now become an advisor to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in the same mood that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, same spirit that Krishna visited the house of Kubja, which was actually to give a message to the gopis that I'm not forgetting you. And in the same way I'm remembering my promise to Kubja, I'm going to remember my promise to you. I'm going to come to see you. And thereby, Kubja was actually helping Krishna in a very, very deep way, helping Krishna to serve the gopis and to come closer to the gopis. So that same spirit is practiced by Kubja again as Kashi Mishra. Now that Kashi Mishra is giving advice to the same Krishna, you don't want to, your purpose is to taste Radha Bhav. Because a sannyasi, the sannyas mantra, we won't get into that, but it's not such a big secret what that mantra is. It's a gopi mantra. And the sannyasis, when they get that mantra, it's the same mantra that the Babajis chant. It just means a person is identifying himself as a gopi. They're identifying themselves as a servant of Srimati Radharani, which is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing. So Kashi Mishra, Kubja, that was Kubja's purpose ultimately, to help Krishna to come closer to the gopis, to help Krishna repay his debt to the gopis by coming to Kashi Mishra's house, to Kubja's house, and thereby indicating indirectly to the gopis that I'm not forgetting you, I'm going to come and see you. The same Kubja then comes again and is giving the same kind of spirit of advice to Krishna again, who's come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very fascinating. Huh? So that it's also described now in the Antya-lila, the same chapter actually, about Maharaj Prataparudra. Let's see. That every day Prataparudra Eka Achay Niyama, his niyama, his regular business, his vows, his problem. Maharaj Prataprabhu, every day he would come, he would do one particular duty as long as he was staying in Jagannath Puri. Nitya Asi Kori Mishra Pada Samvahana. He would come to massage the lotus feet of Kashi Mishra. And then Jagannatha Seva Kori Bhiyana Shravana. He would hear from Kashi Mishra. Kashi Mishra was a Rajguru. To this day, I had the good fortune, I guess it's been about 20 years now, but I had the good fortune about 20 years ago, on the advice of Maharaj Dibya Singh Dev, the current king of Puri. He recommended that I go to the Rajguru, whose name I don't recall. Let's see if I have his name here. I don't have his name handy with me here. We went to visit the Rajguru. It's a kind of position which has been passed down in Jagannath Puri for many generations. So Kashi Mishra was the Rajguru. And he had, his position was also to make sure that Lord Jagannath was being served very nicely. I'd like to share something else with you, a little secret that we found out some years ago in Jagannath Puri. There was a local friend of ours who took us to see some special deities. And these deities, we don't know the name of the person who was worshiping them. I'm very sorry. But we know that it was a she. It was the wife of Kashi Mishra. And these are the deities that she was worshiping. And these deities were lost and forgotten for over 50 years. There was one sadhu, his name was Lokanath Baba. He was a pujari for Radhakant in the Gambhira. And he was worshiping Radhakant. And one day, these deities of Radha Krishna, you're looking at in the picture, came to him in a dream and told him, Baba, you're taking bath every day. We want to have a bath also. Everybody's forgotten about us. You're eating every day. Would you please come and serve us? What had happened, there's a small temple that I've taken perhaps some of you to, not far from the Gambhira, in that area which is known today as Kuntiya Sahi. The area of Kanai Kuntiya. Kanai Kuntiya's deities are also nearby, and we sometimes take devotees there also. But there's a small temple of Kashi Mishra's wife. Again, I'm sorry, we don't know her name. We don't know the names of the deities. So what happened, those deities were under the jurisdiction of the Gambhira. You can see them. Here's Shri Radha Krishna, Lalita on the left, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the right. This funny-looking thing here on the far right is a Sudarshan Chakra, according to the pujaris there. So these deities were worshipped by Kashi Mishra's wife. And according to the pujaris there, the deities were very, very particular. And if you'd make some mistake, you slept in and didn't, you forgot about Mangal Artik, you showed up at 4:45 instead of 4:30, something bad would happen to you. Krishna didn't tolerate any mistakes. And so the pujaris became frightened, and finally they just stopped the worship. And they locked the temple up, they locked up the deities, and for over 50 years, they forgot all about the worship, until Krishna came in a dream to this Lokanath Baba. I have his photo in some places. He was very affectionate to me. He passed away a few years ago. We used to take devotees to see him. He's very wonderful, very, very gentle, sweet sadhu. So he went to that temple, which has since been somewhat renovated. And he went there, he got a key, and he opened the doors to the temple. And you see the deities here. I'm bringing my cursor up to Krishna's neck. The water in the temple was all the way up to Krishna's neck. In other words, Radharani and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were underwater because of some leak in the roof. And it was full of dead cockroaches and rats and very nasty, smelly water. When he came into the temple compound before he went to the small temple, it was full of garbage. The neighboring people had just been throwing the garbage over the wall for many generations. So Lokanath Baba, after he had this dream, he went there, he drained the water out of the temple, and with his own hands, he lovingly bathed and dressed the deities, and you can see their worship, which is going on today. So I don't know so much about Kashi Mishra. We don't have so much, we know about him, but we know something about his wife and her deities. We know something about Radhakant, the deities that Kashi Mishra was worshipping. And we hear about the mood of Kashi Mishra, how he was coming every day to massage the feet, how Maharaj Prataparudra was coming every day to massage the feet of Kashi Mishra. In the Manjari-bhava chapter 8, there's also a description about Kashi Mishra in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and it's an interesting description that I found also. These things, our acharyas, they write many things, but many of these things are anvaya-vetarikam, they're indirect. And we have to look at them with the Aya Shastra in a thoughtful way. So these are things which I haven't seen discussed externally, but if you think about it, it's there. So this is Mahaprabhu's, this discussion in Manjari-bhava chapter 8 of Chaitanya Bhagavat is speaking about Mahaprabhu's water pastimes at Narendra Sarovar, which are going on right now, actually, probably, in Jagannath Puri, every day during... they may be finishing around this time, but they have the pastimes go on quite late at night. They have dancing and different things at Narendra Sarovar. It's during the Chandan Yatra festival. Lord Jagannath goes, Madan Mohan goes there every day. So during that festival, when Mahaprabhu was there with his associates, Kashi Mishra Ani Jagannath Tera Galar, Mala Ani Anga Bhusha Kalina Sabar. Kashi Mishra, what was he doing? He was bringing Jagannath's garlands and Anga Bhusha, those things which decorated, he decorated the bodies of the devotees. These are the things which were decorating Lord Jagannath, which means that the sandalwood paste of Lord Jagannath, definitely, especially at the Chandan Yatra festival, which is the service of Kubja. Kubja previously was serving Kamsa, and she was bringing him sandalwood paste and different oils and things. And now she got relief from that. And now the same Kubja has become Kashi Mishra, and she's offering the same substances, only now it's the Mahaprasad of Lord Jagannath. And Kashi Mishra is offering it to the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is a special service that Kashi Mishra was doing. So we can see Kubja in this service. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written a beautiful set of prayers called the gaura-lila Smarana Mangala Stotra. And in text 80, he speaks something about these pastimes and how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira, in the house of Kashi Mishra, he was feeling the greatest ecstasies. And the joints of his body were becoming elongated, and sometimes his limbs would shrink inside of his body. All of these things were happening there in Kashi Mishra's house. Such a very, very important place. So that Kashi Mishra, according to Kavi Karnapur in Gaura Ganadis Deepika, has said that Kashi Mishra is Kubja. And I want to finish with a few other things here. He says, Mathura Yampura Yasit Sarindri, krsna-lila. Sarindri is a name for Kubja. Right? Mathura Yampura Yasit, that previously, that Sarindri who was living in Mathura, who was very dear to Krishna, Krishna Vallabha, Sadhanila Chalavasa Kashi Mishra Prabhu Priya, has now become Kashi Mishra, is very, very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's an important subject. If we're going to speak about the Gambhira, we need to speak something about Kashi Mishra. We need to speak something about who Kashi Mishra was before. Now, I spoke something elaborately about this, as I mentioned several times, in our series on meeting in Kurukshetra. Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnav Toshanu's commentary in the 10th canto, in the 48th chapter, when he speaks about Kubja, he tells a story from the Mathura Harivamsa, and how in her previous life, Kubja was a princess, and she heard some Harikatha from Narad Muni. She heard about the glories of Krishna. She became very, very attracted. And later, the king, her father, asked Narad Muni to please find a good groom, good husband for my daughter. And so then Narad Muni said, well, let's ask the princess, what does she want? And when she became very shy, and she said, well, I want that person that you glorified as a Supreme Lord, I want that person to be my husband. And then Narad Muni said, well, I'm really sorry, that's not possible. Then she said, well, okay, I'll marry him if it takes, I'll wait for millions of births. And then Narad Muni, he gave her some bhajan, some pranali, some bhajan pranali, how that princess could get Krishna as her husband. And then there was an Akashvani from the sky, voice, that you'll become Kubja in the future, and by my touch you'll become beautiful, and I'll become your husband. So then later she was born in a merchant's house that belonged to Kamsa's best minister, and Kamsa assigned her to supply sandalwood paste and fragrances and different things. But that same Kubja, according to Brahma Vivarta Purana in the 4th canto there, and according to the 5th canto of the Garga Samhita, that same Kubja previously was Suparnika. And I'm not going to go at length in terms of that and show you those verses and things. But my Guru Maharaj told this story also, that Suparnika approached Lord Ramachandra. Lord Ramachandra, who is the Supreme Lord, who in the Bhagavad Gita promises, Yeyatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. However, someone approaches me, I reciprocate in a like way, in the same fashion. That Suparnika approached Lord Ramachandra madly in love with him. And her love was mixed with some lust. But still, it's millions of times greater than the feelings that we have as aspiring devotees. And how did Lord Ramachandra reciprocate with her? He told Lakshman, cut off her nose and ears. And as we were pointing out in our classes on meeting Kurukshetra, that's not very nice. How is that, my Guru Maharaj asked, how is that reciprocating with her? But it actually is. Because by cutting off her nose and ears, no one else would marry her. And Suparnika couldn't stop thinking about Lord Ramachandra. And for tens of thousands of years, she suffered just meditating on Lord Ramachandra until Dwapara Yuga came. And Suparnika took birth in the house of a merchant in Mathura who was close with Kamsa. And she became known as Kubja. But there's another description about the identity of Kashi Mishra. There's one scholar who found a rare book called the Gaura-Ganasrup Tattva Chandrika, which is a book written by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And I found it very interesting what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said about Kashi Mishra. He said, Ranga Devi Ganan Sarvan Sankshepena Lakamyaham Kalakanti Bhaje Yasit Kashi Mishra Bhavat Kila. Now, I remember when I read this first, I thought, oh, okay, it seems like Vishwanath has a different understanding than Kavi Karnapur. But then I dug a little bit deeper. He says that, first of all, Vishwanath's saying, now I'm going to start speaking about the Ranga Devi Gana, or the associates, the attendants of Ranga Devi is one of the Asasakis. And in particular, Kalakanti, who is one of the manjaris of Ranga Devi. And her, in Kali Yuga and gaura-lila, she was Kashi Mishra. So I looked a little bit further into this, into Ranga Devi and Kalakanti. And what is the service that Ranga Devi does with Kalakanti? She supplies sandalwood paste for the divine couple. So as far as I can see, and I don't know of any commentaries on this, I can't say this in an absolute way, but from what I can see, there was a princess who heard some Krishna Katha from Narad Muni. And because of that, perhaps she took birth as Suparnika. As Suparnika, she fell in love with Lord Ramachandra, but he had this promise, Ekapatni Brata, I'll only have one wife. So he couldn't fulfill her desire in rama-lila. And so then she took birth again as Kubja in krsna-lila. And her house became the place where Krishna was able to use to give a message to the Braj Gopis that I'm not forgetting you. And how is he not forgetting? By doing your bhajan. That same Kubja, the same Suparnika, the same princess, same Suparnika, same Kubja, then took birth as Kashi Mishra in gaura-lila and gave the place the Gambhira. The same thing in the essence that Kubja was doing for Krishna, gave a place for the Lord to give his message to the Braj Gopis. But then what was the final destination of that Suparnika Kubja, Princess Suparnika Kubja the Kashi Mishra, I like to think that the final destination, the ultimate destination, certainly is described by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, that it's Ranga Devi Gana Kalakanti, that it's the Saki Manjari of Kalakanti, who's doing the same sandalwood seva that Kubja was doing for the Lord, only now in the spiritual world. And by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that personality, she became that Gopi Manjari. So, I finished my long, crooked discussion. I like this subject. I'm actually thinking that we should write something, a book or something about Kubja, Kashi Mishra, and Kalakanti. So anyway, I'd like to stop here and give some time for the devotees if you want to have them make any comments or anything. I'm sorry we missed Ujjwala Rashgi if you're watching this later on. Thank you for taking part when you did. Himanti, would you like to share anything with us? Any prize that you got today from our discussion?
Pranams Madhavananda Prabhu. Thank you so much. I think today I was just really absorbed with the pastimes of all the deities, the pictures you were referring to. So I really enjoyed that. And just to be here with everyone today also was just special for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's so, what's so special about these deities? Our Fakir Mahaprabhu once commented to us, he said, you can go to Lloyd Bazaar and you can find deities that are bigger. You might find deities that are better carved than perhaps than Radha Govinda in Jaipur. I don't know. You might find bigger deities than Govindaji in Jaipur. But what's special about these deities that Krishna is manifested by the love of his devotees. And so these particular deities we were seeing, Kashi Mishra, he was personally worshiping Radhakant. His wife was personally worshiping those deities known as Radha Krishna. So when we're having darshan of those deities, it's not just that we're looking at this black form of the Lord who's holding a flute and he's got a peacock feather on his head, but we're seeing the love of his devotees. And it's the love of those devotees which make those deities so radiant and so very special. So that's a great comment. Thank you very much, Himanti. Krishna. Vrinda Sundari, do you want to share anything? I know you're always busy. You may have to go. So I'll call on you. Are you able to?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Vidarbha Sutta and Lokadakshi here who are obeying this.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
This was we got it later, but just wanted to reflect on this amazing point that how just a little tiny little desire in some lifetime, how it progresses and progressively brings the devotee to deeper and deeper places of service. That was very amazing.
It's very, very encouraging, isn't it? I mean, to think, I can really relate to Suparnika. I have to honestly say that's actually Suparnika is much, much more exalted than myself. But to hear that Suparnika got such fortune to become an associate of Krishna, and then she got so much mercy from Krishna, she got to become Kashi Mishra, and then she became a Saki Manjari. Wow, it's pretty good. Hare Krishna movement works. Huh?
I had a question, Prabhu. Why did this princess, what did she do to get like a demoniac body, a Suparnika, and then Kubja's body was also deformed? She must have done something to get those kind of bodies.
That's not said. That's my personal possible interpretation. Jiva Goswami, in his commentary, he just quotes this Mathura Harivamsa, and it doesn't mention anything directly about Suparnika. I'm adding that possibly this could be the pathway, that this could be the very beginning, that Narad Muni gave her this bhajan pranali, which is not mentioned exactly what type of bhajan pranali, but because of that she had some good fortune. In the Mathura Harivamsa, it says that in her next life she became Kubja. So whether that means, sometimes we hear, and in the lives of different devotees, we hear about a Jamil, that Jamil got liberation by chanting Namabas, but actually he didn't get liberation. He got Sadhu Sangha. And after getting Sadhu Sangha, then a Jamil got liberation. So there was a pathway. So whether this was in a different Dibya Yuga and the pastime happened in a little different way, that's possible. Jiva Goswami comments like that. Or perhaps she became Suparnika. I don't know. I just mentioned the Suparnika story. I like that. And it's given in Brahma Vivarta Purana and Garga Samhita. So that's the best I can say. Is that helpful, Prabhu?
Yes, thank you so much. When are you coming back to India, Prabhu?
As soon as Lord Jagannath allows. They have a saying in Orissa, Bhagavananka Icha, whatever God desires. Jagannath-anka Icha, whatever Lord Jagannath desires. It's still up in the air. We've had some high-ranking people go to Delhi and talk to the ministry there. We had like one of the top ambassadors contact him from Ukraine, from Hungary, and they wouldn't give a message. And finally, we sent somebody to Delhi. They said, "Well, you got to go online." They went online. There was nothing online. They went back and said, "Oh, you have to go to Hyderabad." So we sent someone to Hyderabad, and Krishna Kun in the background here now just says, "We just got some kind of message." Last thing I heard was that there was a message that we're going to have to try to work on it and approach different senior diplomats and senior government authorities and try to work on it. I don't know. In any case, right now, we have plans to go to Ukraine to give some classes, probably twice, a couple of different programs, to go to Serbia, to go to Lithuania, and to go to Czech, I think, for Balaram's appearance day, if Lila Purushottam Prabhu will allow us.
Or maybe another time.
Or maybe another time. We haven't spoken to him about that yet. That's all I can say right now.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Krishna says,
thank you.
Krishna. Brinda Sundari, would you like to share something?
I'm really appreciating today so much. You were speaking about understanding Lord Chaitanya's mood of introspection, and how we can learn that in the association of the devotees that understand his mood of introspection. And yeah, that's interesting to me, that we need both for our path. We need association, and then we need our introspection. We need both. And wow, those deities are amazing. I wanna see those deities. That I find it really interesting that someone would stop the worship because of the reciprocation of the deities.
Yes, it's disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a real ladies' temple. There's a number of real ladies' temples in Orissa. You got to come sometime. Tell your husband you got to bring, or he can take care of the kids or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
bring the harp along with you. We can do some bhajan in different places. Yeah, it's not only important for us as individuals, but it's important for our movement. And I think you'll appreciate this as a manager also, because if all that we have to offer to people is an institution, if all that we have to offer them is 4 o'clock in the morning and 4 of these and 16 of these and this and different formulas, we lose people. But in the beginning, most people, that's a lot for them to digest, those 4 and 16 and 4 o'clock and 4:30 and whatever. But after some time, we need to tell them our message is introspection. And we associate with the devotees in the temple, but we're alone in the crowd. We're with the crowd, but at the same time, we have to be alone. And that's the message of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we go crazy. And every good mother, every good temple president knows that too. You just go completely bat freaking crazy if you just listen to every single person, isn't it? We need to have a little Gambhira for ourselves. And that's not just for ourselves, but it's also for other people. Otherwise, it's incomplete. It won't be satisfying to everybody. It'll just be it'll end up, if we're not careful, just as something institutional. Thank you, Brinda. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Talia, do you want to share anything? Are you there?
Thank you very much. It was so many interesting personalities today. For me, the sweetest was when devotees discussed where Lord Chaitanya would stay, and this house of Kashi Mishra would be the best place because it will support his mission, his bhajan, everything, and just this mood, and just to catch. I just was diving into it, how they were thinking about him, and and guessing like yes, this is the best for him. This was very sweet.
It's important, and a message that comes also is that we have to have a place for our bhajan. And you may go to the temple, but I know, Natalia, sometimes the temple is not so inspiring for you. Sometimes it is, sometimes maybe it's not, because there's a lot of devotees, maybe there's some politics and other things. That's what happens with organized religion. But then you have to make your own place, your own Gambhira, and you have some intimate people there. You have your kids, you have some friends, and you have to have a place where you can express your heart in a deep way. It's really, really important. Thank you. Krishna. Anil, nice to see you. Can we see you? Would you like to share anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sounds like your connection's not so great.
Yeah, that's why I'm not coming on the video. Okay. Otherwise, it will. Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you better now.
Prabhuji, first of all, thank you very much for the wonderful, amazing session. It was really amazing. I mean, I think this is the first time I'm hearing so much about Gambhira. I've been there. I've been to Jagannath Puri like 2-3 times, attending Rath Yatra over there, going to Gambhira, coming out, having darshan of all the paraphernalia of Mahaprabhu over there. But after hearing, I can really connect to the place. And I was just thinking, how do I connect to Gambhira? How this is relevant to my life? And I was thinking that Gambhira for a sadhaka like me, who is like having all type of things in his life. So it should be like introspection and going deeper into my sadhana. That should be my Gambhira.
Nice. And I like to meditate also that the Gambhira, Mahaprabhu approached Lord Jagannath. He approached God. And he fell down unconscious in front of Lord Jagannath. And then Jagannath's devotee in the form of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya brought him to his home. But his home wasn't appropriate because it was too small and so many people were coming to see him. And then Mahaprabhu's devotees, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Kashi Mishra, offered him this better place in the form of the Gambhira. So that's my humble thought. Another way we could look at it is that when we approach the Lord in a sincere way, in an introspective way, and we cry and pray, then the Lord sends his devotees. And the devotee will come with a Gambhira, a place where we can go, we can have very intimate, deep discussions and things which are needed for us, which we're not necessarily going to find alone in the big temple.
Yes, Prabhuji, definitely, yes. I was, that day I talked to you, and after that, added me to the group. I'm just, I can't thank you enough, that, I'm having this association now. And, it was really needed for me to listen to these things, I was missing, we can go to YouTube and Facebook and everything. We can listen, but listening live, and, you can see some devotees over there who are sitting there, they're attending the, program right now. And it gives a feel of, like a association, I'm having an association now, which I was really missing in my life.
Yeah, and as we were, as you were saying something the other day, was it yesterday, in our session we were having with the devotees in Gita Nagari, hearing the Bhagavatam does something to us. The Bhagavatam itself says, Shoka Moha Bhayapaha. That just hearing this Krishna Katha, everything's okay. And I don't have to worry about the enemies of our sampradaya. I don't have to worry about the child molestation. I don't have to worry about the politics and the Ridviks and the this thing and the that thing. Just worry about Krishna. Just hear the Bhagavatam. And then you realize everything is okay, and this is a supreme solution for everything. Whereas if we go and try to fight with all these people and smash and bash them, I'm not saying fighting is wrong. If you're Arjun and Krishna says, Nimitta matram bhavasavi sachi, that you be my instrument. If you're Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Krishna empowers you to be a court magistrate, then you can chastise Bisika Sain. If you're Srila Prabhupada, you can chastise the scientists and other persons, but otherwise we should just take shelter of Krishna Katha. And Sarva Karma Krita Hoy, everything will be taken care of. All anxieties and problems, especially in association.
Yes, I remember one verse from Gopi Gita, that is Tava Katha Mritam Tapta Jivanam. So that I can feel it, so by listening the Katha, you actually feel the bliss and the peace and the, at times you get to feel the ecstasy when you are in devotee association. At times you get to have those, tears which you really need in your life. Thank you for that.
As long as we associate with Bahirmukh Janas, external persons who just see Prabhupada's mission as an institution with a hierarchy and like a business model and things, there's always going to be all kinds of anxieties and things. But if we become antarmukh, we become internal, and we realize that Srila Prabhupada did not come to create an institution. That was not his purpose. Srila Prabhupada's purpose in coming was to bring Krishna consciousness, was to bring Krishna Katha and Krishna Kirtan. That was Srila Prabhupada's purpose. And the institutions, we sometimes say, is like a box to keep the gift. And if we always hear that Krishna Katha, then we can remember that and we won't be in so much anxiety.
Yes.
I miss your Sangha, Neil Prabhu. You had to come and visit us in Puri if we ever allowed to go back again.
As soon as you come, I will be there as soon as you come back. And I'm praying that, you come as early as possible.
Maybe we'll come and visit you in Punjabi Bagh too. We'll see.
Oh, yes. Please.
Hari Sham Prabhu, would you like to make some comments? Anything?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, nice to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you too. The pastimes are always sweet. In fact, it's sweet like the conversations that you are having with the devotees here. It's really nice. I'm also quite keen to know the history, the interrelated pastimes. It will be nice if there is more investigative work done on this. It just sounds so fascinating. Of course, we know of the greatest demons that came through, who happened to be the best devotees too eventually, Jay and Vijay. And it'll be nice to know how Kashi Mishra had originated. And anyway, it's just fascinating knowing that it could be Suparnika from Ramayana. So thank you for that. And I look forward to hearing more about that. Maybe sometime you will share something on it.
I think someday I'm looking forward when the FBI takes up the investigation of who was Kubja in the previous life and what happened to Kubja. And that'll be the real perfection of the FBI and the CIA. Hopefully that day will come someday. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Krishna Balaram Prabhu, nice to see you. You want to share anything?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you. It was just so much of nectar today. I don't know what to say. So thanks for that. It's really good. If I was struggling to keep up with you, there's just so much notes to take. But I think the one part that I enjoyed, actually, yesterday Mukunda Prabhu and I were together and we were speaking about this point here, about just finding your space where you can actually get away from the crowd a bit and kind of focus on things that are meaningful to you. And I like the part that you spoke about, where you spoke about Lord Chaitanya, that when he was staying in the Gambhira, he was unaffected. And then he would come into the association of the devotees, and then he wouldn't see all the external problems and those kind of things. And I think that's such a nice point as well, because sometimes we need that, when we come into the association of devotees, it's sometimes nice to just not be judgmental and just not know other things, and just be able to just interact in Krishna consciousness in a nice, innocent way. So I appreciated that point. I like that. And then the other one, of course, you speak about the Kubja files. I think that's such a, when you're reading the pastime in Srimad Bhagavatam, a few things go through my mind when I read it, and of course I'm in such a mundane space. So when I read it, I was thinking, the one point that comes out from Srila Prabhupada was that she had certain desires in Krishna associated with her to purify those desires, and that's what stuck with me. And I was thinking that's nice, because I'm going to need that. But then there's this other point that you bring up, which is a totally different angle altogether, of where you're saying that this is the way Lord Krishna was sending a message, like very subliminal of sorts, but sending this message through to the gopis to let them know that he's going to stick to his promise. He'll come back. And I thought that's very deep. I mean, really, that doesn't pass in, reading that pastime, you don't get it unless, of course, somebody has. It's really deep insight into that. But that was great. Thanks for this, Prabhu. Couldn't catch up with your notes today. You just
I have so many things. I just had to go quick through it, but I just wanted to share what we found about Kashi Mishra and about Kubja. You were saying that how you were telling Mukunda, you and Mukunda were speaking about the importance of having some quiet space, and how you appreciate when you have that quiet space, that deep space, and when you go amongst the devotees, you're not affected by the politics and things. When we go in a mood like that, then we're an ambassador. We're the ambassador of Gurudev. We're the ambassador of Srila Prabhupada. We're the ambassador of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we're coming, just as the ambassador comes with a message from the other country, we're coming with Krishna's message in the form of the Gita and the Bhagavatam. And then we can really be an ambassador. But if we're coming and we just get absorbed, oh my God, did you hear what happened in Mayapur? And this thing and that thing, and we just become absorbed in all that, then we're no longer an ambassador. And I'm not trying to say that all the people, the devotees who have those concerns are necessarily wrong. Krishna may be acting to them in different ways. I don't know, but it's not my instruction to be the reformer like that. My instruction is to carry the message. And I have great faith in that message as a solution for everything. And unless Krishna personally comes to me, like he did with Arjuna and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and give them some instruction to do something, I'm going to just stick to what I've been given by my guru and try to be his humble ambassador. And yet, the other thing I was thinking too, Krishna consciousness, Krishna Katha, is so exciting, isn't it? We should be so excited. It's just so far, it's just so deep. But if it's just the same old stuff, if we're not excited by it, then maybe there's something not right. We miss Nandarani. She's not here today.
Prabhu, she was listening in. But yeah, she's just not in a space to talk. But yeah, she's good.
Be nice to her. Tell her I said that, okay?
I'll do it. It's Mother's Day, so also best wishes to Mother Krishna Kund as well.
Okay. Thank you for wishing Hare Krishna. And Brajabanita, would you like to share anything?
Oh, Hare Krishna, Guruji. I cannot share much because I just joined to you when you started comments and sharing things.
Just noticed you there.
I will, you can see because I'm on my iPhone and my computer just dead.
Well, that's not
and
you
I'm
with
on
the horns and the 4
What?
legs? That's not you with the 4 legs and the horns?
No, it's not me, but it's my baby. one of them. So I have nothing to share. You actually, you know my mood. I'm sharing sometimes through Facebook things that I understand and thinking of.
The important thing is we need to come together. Otherwise, we'll go crazy if it's just all rituals and rules and institutions.
Yes, I cannot. It's institution. It's not me anyway. And I'm absolutely realized person in my material life. I don't need to find, special company. I don't need supporting from institution, nothing. I'm not interested in this at all. I mean, zero. So I'm going where I feel nutritious. So that's why I'm listening to Katha, because I love Katha. I'm not. I cannot put myself, or I can't associate myself with institution. You know me. So it's all this looks for me ridiculous theater. Not good even.
When someone gets a taste for Hari Katha, that's a symptom of advancement.
Yeah, this is actually what I want to add to, but also not everybody, I have few people who I love to hear, and it's enough for me, more than enough.
Anyway, institutions also have their role, and just like the cow there, I think she should have a sari on and some tilak, and I don't know if she went to Mangal Artik or not. You should check on it. Be sure.
Thank you, Guruji. I will listen this Katha a little later on record on YouTube. Actually,
I think you missed what I was just teasing that the institution has some role also, and you should appreciate that. And therefore, the cow you have here, you should put a sari on her.
Yes, I will put some tilak, sari, and this red binda.
She goes to Mangal Artik at 4:30, and she does her japa and things too, right?
Absolutely. She will have a heavy discussion with manager.
Okay. Thank you, Brajavanita.
Thank you, Guruji.
Mukunda, do you want to share anything? It's really good to see you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Good to see you too. Yeah, it was quite deep today. It's very nectarian. I was thinking while you were speaking about the different types of ecstasies that Mahaprabhu goes through, in relations to this inwardness, the different levels that he approaches, and the different types of moods that he takes to engage in these, activities. For example, you said Gambhira was a place of meeting of where Krishna came as a place of remembering of meeting the gopis, and that he's not forgotten them. So naturally, here is Mahaprabhu in the mood of Krishna, because it cannot be in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Yet when we did the embankment of separation, and we spoke about the Gambhira, we went deep into Srimati Radharani's mood, strictly Srimati Radharani's mood, So I was just trying to put the two together. And then, you mentioned 24-6-6-12, which initially I thought was Mahaprabhu's transcendental bank account you were sharing with us. The 24-6, yes, but the second 6, that second 6 tells me that there were different levels of association that Mahaprabhu was having with the different devotees. And some of that association was in the mood of Krishna, having association with his devotees. And some of it should be in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Yet when I see the 12 years, I see that the 12 was strictly and intensely the mood of Srimati Radharani that Mahaprabhu was actually exhibiting. So I'm just trying to see different types of flavors of ecstasy, of inwardness, and levels of Mahaprabhu's activities, just focused on the Gambhira itself. That's what I gathered from this.
Sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of preaching, especially in Navadvip in the first 24 years. And in 6 years he was preaching, which is a mood of Radharani, Mahavadanyaya avatar, because that Kripa Shakti, the personification of that is Radha, and because Mahaprabhu, he's in the mood of Radha, that the Kripa Shakti comes out so powerfully. But in the second 6 years, again in the mood of Radharani, maybe sometimes in the mood of Krishna, but primarily the mood of Radha, he's training devotees how to preach and how to satisfy Krishna, how to do their own bhajan, how to preach, how to help the conditioned souls. And like you, I find that second 6 years very, very significant and very important. We oftentimes stress what we might compare to the first 6 years. Just go out and do book distribution, Prabhu, and meet everybody, and that's important. But it's also important that we take some people and we have some intimate community. And we sit together and we have some time for things. Otherwise, it won't be satisfying.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
And Gaura Nitai Prabhu, it's getting late there. I forgot about you. I'm sorry. Let's see. My gosh, it's what is it? Like 11 o'clock at night or something? 11:30? Really?
Very soon. It's very early.
I'm so sorry.
It's not so late. It's quite early. Becomes some slowly.
This, for those of you who don't know, this is Gaura Nitai Prabhu, and he's in his Gambhira, which is in Mayapur. And just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is relishing Harikatha with the devotees late at night, so also Gaura Nitai Prabhu is doing the same thing.
If I allow me, I have two thoughts which I would like to share. One is a question and one is a way of see these pastimes. You often mention that how someone from the rama-lila appears in krsna-lila, and that's not just in this case. Different cases is beautiful, it's wonderful. And also I agree with Krishna Balam Prabhu. It's so nice when we see different angles, different acharyas, how they see the picture as one, and then the details have different meanings. So, but I would like to mention another view, maybe it's correct, maybe please correct me, that as we heard that Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and in any incarnations, the associations of Krishna are coming from Srimati Radharani or Balaram. So they expand themselves to follow Krishna in different pastimes. Like Srimati Radharani expand herself to become Sita in the rama-lila. So is it correct that we see that the other associate of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan, they expand themselves and they appear in different lilas, like this Manjari expand herself and becomes Surpanaka to serve in a very difficult situation. So a Manjari appears in a Rakshasa's family and becomes a family member just to have to nourish the Lord Rama's pastime. And then at one point, she becomes in love. It's natural because she's originally in love with Krishna. So that's one thought what to think about.
Whether or not Shurpanaka is a manjari in krsna-lila or not is a very difficult thing to say. And whether she's Kalakanti Manjari or not, or whether Kalakanti Manjari entered into Shurpanaka, or maybe Kalakanti Manjari entered into Kubja, or entered into Kashi Mishra, it's a difficult thing to say. I don't think in one sense it's so important, but we see the essence there, that we see that there's some possibility that these persons, they became this great thing. In general, our acharyas have described that whenever Krishna comes, his associates come and they come in a particular form to help manifest the Lord's desire in those particular pastimes. And so when the Lord wants to enjoy pastimes which are full of opulence, then the gopis, they appear as Lakshmis. And the Lord takes place in pastimes in Vaikuntha. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, he's Krishna himself, and the same gopis come in male forms. And Radharani herself comes as Gadadhar Pandit, and Krishna comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's got the mood of Radharani. And Gadadhar Pandit's what's left over, some Vaishnavas say, after Krishna stole that mood. But they're coming in a particular way to help Mahaprabhu, help Krishna Mahaprabhu to do bhajan. And that's the significance of the Gambhira-lila. The Gambhira-lila is such an important thing. It's really the essence of our sampradaya. Because Kaviraj Goswami says it's in the Gambhira that Krishna was able to fulfill his three desires, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But we don't often stress so much on it because it's really postgraduate. But we'll find it in books like Vilapkusa Manjali and others of Raghunath Das Goswami. We'll find what some Vaishnavas say is the echo of the Gambhira. And just like if you have someone who was a Vietnam, who was in the army during the Vietnam War, and they were captured by the Vietnamese, and they were tortured, and the things that they've gone through is so horrific. The rest of their life is going to be affected. Maybe they'll go back to America or whatever, but they're going to be affected by that torture and the suffering that they went through. So in the same way, we call it a samskar, an impression. So in the same way, can you imagine what Raghunath Das Goswami felt when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rubbing his face on the wall, and blood coming, and his hands and arms shrinking inside of his body. And when he saw the bhajan and the Gambhira, it would affect him the rest of his life. And that Gambhira, that crying out, is an echo of that Gambhira. That's Vilapkusa Manjali. That's Lalita Madhava. That's the writings of Raghunath Das Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and others. And we should look for that echo. We should look for where that came from. So that's my habit. I like to look for the Gambhira in these different places. Thank you, Goni Thakur. I find it very, very extraordinary that I'm sitting here in front of you in Debrecen with a woolly sweater on because it's cold. And I'm from India, and you're sitting in Mayapur with a chadar on because it's so hot. You're from Hungary, speaking to me. It's a very, Krishna's laughing somewhere. I think it's nice to see you, Goni Thakur. Okay, let's see. And Lalita, did you have anything you want to share? Otherwise, we'll go to Lila Purushottam Prabhu. You there, Lila?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. There was still Karunas in the Sindhu just a while ago, but it's out now. Oh yeah. Well, there was so many things, and as you mentioned that you promised actually that you will go through this sequence that now we are discussing, like introductory meaning to Gambhira, this introspection, inwardness, and it's already so deep and substantial for our own practices. So you can only try to imagine what's gonna come next in this context. And actually, what was today, one of my what I stuck on was this part of, because when I went through Chaitanya Charitamrita, I was really thinking, like, how did this chapter Gopinath Patanayak's made it to Chaitanya Charitamrita at all, and even more especially to Antya-lila, you know, where's the context?
How did it make it past the editors, right?
it's just so fascinating. Like, what was Krishnadas Kaviraja's like impetus to put this story, this katha in such a context? And actually, those Kashi Mishra's verses that you quote from that chapter today was helping a lot, actually, to see that was his advice to Mahaprabhu. Hey, don't bother with these things. That's not that's not important. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was really strong in that chapter on his position, on his approach to the whole thing. And it was interesting that even very intimate devotees were, I would say, even emotionally involved in getting help for Gopinath Patanayak. And on the other, in the other parts of the Lila, we see them playing completely different roles for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But in this pastime, it's really fascinating, actually, how this, what does this story plays in, what role does it play in a whole sequence of Antya Lila. And so that was one of the things. Then I had the same thoughts as Gornitai Prabhu, actually, that for me it would be very tempting to explore this Kalakanti twist on the whole story, like what would be the relationship. You commented it very nicely, so probably that's not the direction that we will go much more. But it's kind of a mind blow that we are used mostly to what's the Kavi Karnapura's explanations of how is Gaur Ganodesh Deepika, is it? Gaur Ganodesh Deepika. So we are more used to that. And all of a sudden, here we have the work of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur saying, coming up with Kalakanti on the scene, like we would say, instead of Kubja, or which is quite interesting to see, like wow, how different his realization, his view or revelation could be from the Kubja. So yeah, it still would be interesting to explore it more, but that's the question, if we at all have any means to explore it with some instead of inner realization, probably, I would say, or revelation or something like that.
Yeah, when there's this 8th chapter about Gopinath Patanayaka, one thing that really strikes me very much is that Kubja, who's the poster child, we'll say, of Samartha Rati.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Sadharani Rati. Sadharani Rati is that it's mixed Rati. It's considered to be really low class. It's mixed with personal lusts and things. That same Kubja, who is the poster child of Sadharani Rati, now he is preaching to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about Sudha Bhakti. Yeah. And saying, don't get involved in any of these things. And it's such a beautiful thing. In other words, we understand that Kubja learned, she got mercy from Krishna, and she gave up all those desires. And now she's coming and she's preaching to the same Krishna who's in the mood of a devotee. You don't want that stuff, believe me.
I mean, in a sense, like you're discussing it with such a depth that it definitely it's definitely over my head. But I have to say that I was always puzzled with this description, that Kashi Mishra, someone so intimate and like doing such a service for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he provided his housing, living, or place for bhajan, for his worship, could how do you harmonize it like that? It's someone, as you mentioned now, this term, someone with sadharani rati, so someone with ordinary, well, that would be translation, right? Like ordinary affection or and then it comes like Vishwanath Chakravarti comes with the Kalakanti as a manjari, and it sounds immediately like to my rather superficial approach, it sounds immediately, yeah, manjari, that sounds better,
The message that I see throughout these different pastimes of Suparnika and Kubja, Kashi Mishra, and Kalakanti is great hope.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible, inconceivable, great hope.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very inspiring. That's the wonder of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna.
Yeah. I wonder if the partially but that would be the time sequence would be like twisted around. But I was thinking if that you sometimes quote that final, probably it's final verse of Chaitanya Chandrodaya Natakam, that whoever worships me in this form as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no matter what's his svarup, until that time, I will change it into Vraja svarup. So that would be kind of a answer, like how Kubja would become Kalakanti or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's statement, what I see in it is that because Kubja, I don't see as an eternal associate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She is.
Yeah.
That's not her ultimate sarup. How can that be her ultimate sarup? But Kalakanti, that's the ultimate sarup of Kashi Mishra. So that's the ultimate position. It's the ultimate attainment.
So that could be another, like that Kavi Karnapura points to the Bhauma-lila, like what was her position in the Bhauma-lila, like Kashi Mishra's position in Vraja's Bhauma-lila, and Vishwanath Chakravartis could refer directly to Nitya-lila, to the eternal position. That would be also quite satisfactory viewpoint. Okay.
It's pretty nice to think Kubja became a manjari.
That's also hope-giving.
Rani Thakur has made some comments. He says, thank you for your comment about the real importance of Gambhira bhajan for us ascetics. We've heard that Krishna showed a foreign form to Kashi Mishra, and it fits to the picture that Kashi Mishra is priestly Kubja relating to Krishna much. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. But the other information which tells us that Kashi Mishra is a manjari in Krishna, that brings the question, which forearm form was shown? Maybe that which the gopis saw when Krishna tried to hide himself, which was worshipped by Lord Chaitanya and Alanath. But of course, this direction is not the main path. Well, boy, we could conjecture a lot of things. Yeah, you've been hearing some stuff from me. That would be my inclination. Kashi Mishra, one of the special guests in Kashi Mishra Bhavan, is Roy Ramananda. Who is Roy Ramananda worshipping? Well, he's in Jagannath Vallabha Gardens, and his deity is still there today, and that deity is known as Krishna Gopal. And that deity that he's worshipping has 4 arms. But it's a very unique deity. In fact, Mahaprabhu, who really studied history, and he's as a professor in the university, he once commented to me that there's only, what did he say? It's only 3 deities that he knows of in all of India, all of the world, that have a form like that deity of Krishna Gopal. One is in the museum in Bhubaneswar, Krishna State Museum. I've seen that deity. And another is in the Jagannath Mandir near the horse gate inside. That deity I have not seen. But he commented that these deities are very special. It's not that so uncommon to have 4-armed deities. There's many 4-armed deities in South India. But this deity is special because in one hand there's a conch shell, and the other hand is a Sudarshan chakra. That's not so unusual. But the other two hands are holding a flute. And that's very, very unique. And that's a special quality of Ramananda Roy. And according to, we actually had the head priest from Jagannath Vallabha Gardens come to our home. I don't remember his name. I'm so bad with names nowadays. We took his photo and he brought us some special prasad and things. He came to our ashram in Puri, and I interviewed him some about the temple there. And he said that according to the local tradition, that deity of Krishna Gopal was there prior to the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is certainly possible if you look at the form of the deity. It's a very, very ancient deity. And according to the tradition, that deity was given, the worship of that deity was given by Mahaprabhu to Ramananda Roy. And according to the tradition, he said that when Ramananda Roy returned, when Mahaprabhu returned from South India, he picked up Ramananda Roy on the way back. And when they came back to Puri, they didn't immediately go back to the Gambhira, but they were staying in Jagannath Vallabha Gardens for some weeks or a month or more. And during that time, according to the local tradition, they were writing a book, which became Jagannath Vallabha Natakam, the book of Ramananda Roy. And he said that book is in the form of a conversation between Ramananda Roy and Mahaprabhu. It was compiled, it was put together at that time in Jagannath Vallabha Gardens. That's their tradition we have. So, yeah, interesting question. That's one possibility. A lot of things. We should think about things, and it should give us inspiration. Not that we should speculate about things and try to have far out answers for everything. Prabhupada didn't like that. But we should get inspiration to do our bhajan and pratyak savagamam dharmyam susukam kartanavyam. As Lila Purushottam was just pointing out, that these things will come to us by revelation. But there's also secrets. Our Goswamis have written many, many things, and they're doing it in a covered way, in a secret way. And we just have to be gold hunters, mining for gold and trying to find those little gold nuggets wherever we can, try to put them together. Okay, anybody else here in the room want to share something? Okay. All right, so we'll see everyone next week. It's nice to have so many devotees taking part. I really, really appreciate it. And Gaura Prabhu, one comment, you were appreciating Krishna Balaram Prabhu. I have to tell you that Krishna Balaram Prabhu is like a national treasure in South Africa. The devotees just love him like anything. And I would highly suggest you ever get a chance to meet him, so you make sure you get some nice prasadam in Mayapur or here in Hungary or something like that. He's a very, very sweet, special devotee. Very much. And was what I'm saying true, Mukunda Prabhu?
Absolutely, Prabhuji. Absolutely.
She's a witness. Okay.
He's a very sweet person. Very helpful, very loving person. Good friend of mine. I'm very fortunate. Very well.
And Radhisham also, Prabhu, comment. That's true. But everybody's saying it's true. We know. All right, Shri Kashi Mishra Bhavan ki, Shri Gaura-Gambhira ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki, Gaur Premananda Yari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Vyahivacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Nandakoti Vaishnava Binda ki. No joke, you should give Krishna